Before we begin our story, please don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more, and drop a comment with your feedback on our stories. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Daniel Kross was born with the sound of artillery echoing across a barren battle-scarred world. On a planet long consigned to the ashes of ceaseless conflict, every crumbling ruin and every scarred landscape bore witness to the tragedies of humanity. As a child, he learned lullabies not from soothing words, but from the distant roars of mechanized warfare and the chorus of exploding shells. His earliest memories were stained with the metallic tang of blood and the acrid smoke of burning cities. In those formative years, life was a rigorous and unyielding discipline. Trained in an environment where a moment's hesitation spelled demise, Kross was molded into a warrior, hardened and relentless. His mentors, veterans of conflicts older than memory, taught him that honor was forged in the furnace of sacrifice. Every blow exchanged in battle was both a lesson and a curse. For every life he was forced to end, another ghost would haunt his dreams. When he came of age, Daniel was inducted into the United Earth Confederation Special Warfare Division as a Black Star operative, a title that brought both pride and terror. In the trenches of countless hostile worlds, he led suicide missions against enemies whose names were lost in the endless annals of war. Each mission left indelible marks on his soul. The faces of comrades, burned into his memory by the relentless hunger of war, whispered to him in quiet moments, "Remember us, never surrender to despair." Yet, the ceaseless campaigns chipped away at the youthful zeal once ignited by heroic purpose. Kross's physical form, chiseled by hardship, was a living testament to the harsh reality he'd known. Deep scars, both visible and hidden, etched the map of his existence. Beneath the hardened exterior lay a man burdened with the weight of survival, a man whose inner conflict simmered beneath a mask of stoic determination. In fleeting moments of solitude, he questioned if his valor was enough or if fate had condemned him to a path of ceaseless loss. Gradually, as the embers of hope flickered amidst the ruin, a new desire took root within him, a yearning for something purer than the annihilation that had defined his existence, the yearning for family and peace. Hoping to leave behind the interminable symphony of combat, Kross ventured far from the blood-soaked battlefields and toward a faint glimmer of hope. New Avalon, a nascent colony established on a lush, fertile planet at the very edge of human space, beckoned like a mirage promising sanctuary. Here, the air was crisp, a rare reprieve from the dust-choked environment of his past, and twin moons rose with gentle luminescence over sprawling golden wheat fields and orderly orchards. In New Avalon, Daniel found more than just a geographic refuge. He discovered a chance at rebirth through the people who filled his new world with warmth. Anya, his wife, was a delicate yet unyielding soul, a healer of wounds both physical and emotional. With calloused hands softened by unwavering care, she sculpted a garden that would soon mirror the untouched beauty of the colony itself. Their daughter, Lara, embodied hope incarnate with her bright, inquisitive eyes and laughter that resonated like the first notes of a long-forgotten melody. Together, they nurtured a small idol amid desolation, reimagining life in terms not of bloodshed, but of growth and renewal. Long evenings spent beneath the slowly darkening sky, bathed in the lustrous glow of twin moons, became moments of tender introspection for Kross. In those fleeting hours, he dared to let the ghosts of war recede, if only enough to envision a world where the clangor of gunfire was replaced by the rustling whispers of wheat in the summer breeze. Yet, beneath the surface of this delicate peace, the shadow of his past loomed large, a constant reminder that even paradise can be a fragile illusion. On one particular night, as the cooling air carried the scent of blossoms mingled with the distant murmur of communal laughter, Kross sat beside Anya in the garden. Her gentle eyes met his, and for a moment, his soul stirred with the possibility of healing. "Do you really believe we can leave all of it behind?" Anya asked softly, her fingers tracing patterns along the petals of a newly bloomed rose. "Maybe not entirely," he confessed, his voice heavy with memories. "But perhaps we can carve out a place where the echoes of war are drowned by the heartbeat of life." In that dialogue, layered with both hope and sorrow, lay the unspoken promise of a future forged from courage and compromise, a future that, however brief, would tempt him to dream beyond the battlefield. Paradise, it turned out, was as transient as a dream that fades with the dawn. Without warning, the clear skies of New Avalon darkened. A disturbance in the heavens heralded an invasion. A fleet of obsidian warships descended like a swarm of locusts upon the unsuspecting colony. These were the vessels of the Bloodfang Syndicate, a ruthless confederation of slavers, pirates, and mercenaries whose emblem, a crimson-fanged maw dripping with blood, had long been the stuff of nightmares whispered in frightened tones across the galaxies. The attack was executed with unrelenting ferocity. In mere minutes, tranquility was replaced by pandemonium. Fiery fragments rained down upon the golden fields, turning cheerful laughter into shrieks of agony. As the colony was consumed by chaos, Daniel's instincts erupted into battle-honed fury. He rushed to his home, dragging Anya and the wide-eyed Lara into the relative safety of their basement shelter. Every second stretched into a lifetime as the sounds of destruction crescendoed above them. Yet fate, always a cruel maestro, demanded a sacrifice. As the echoes of explosions and the screams of the innocent wove a tapestry of despair, Kross made the gut-wrenching choice to leave the shelter, alone. Gripping the rifle he had sworn never to use again, he emerged into a transformed nightmare. The streets were awash with fire and brimstone, and the once familiar sounds of a peaceful colony were replaced with the cacophony of death. Amid the carnage, a towering figure caught his eye, a warlord moving with unsettling grace. Scorn Vraxis, clad in blood-stained crimson armor and wielding a jagged energy blade that pulsed with deadly intent, embodied the very essence of annihilation. Without pause, Kross lined up his shot and emptied his rifle into Vraxis's chest. The bullets bounced harmlessly off supernatural armor, eliciting only a cold, derisive laugh from the monstrous foe. In that hour of horror, tragedy reached its zenith. Anya's heart-wrenching scream tore through the clamor as a hulking brute, with cybernetic claws honed for cruelty, snatched Lara from her protective embrace. Helpless, Kross lunged to reclaim his daughter, but time and fate conspired against him. Vraxis's blade slashed through the air, not sparing even Anya from its fatal arc. As Anya's life ebbed away with a whispered promise, darkness closed in on Kross. When he awoke, the shattered ruins of New Avalon surrounded him, and the piercing absence of his family seared into his soul, a loss that would ignite a relentless fire of vengeance. In the agonizing months that followed, Daniel Kross transformed. No longer was he the celebrated hero of valor, he was now an avenging specter roaming the underbelly of a fractured galaxy. Vengeance became both his shield and his burden. His mind, tormented by the memories of lost love and lost hope, oscillated between the numb rage of the battlefield and sudden, crippling flashes of regret. In restless dreams, his wife's tender smile and his daughter's bright eyes intermingled with the stark images of carnage, a reminder that every act of retribution exacted a personal price. Determined to tear apart the web of depravity that had claimed his life's most cherished pieces, Kross descended into the criminal underworld. His quest led him deep into a labyrinth of illicit dealings and whispered conspiracies. Pieces of his shattered soul were gradually sold, first to discerning bounty hunters, then to notorious crime lords, each exchange a bitter tribute to the debts he owed in human lives. Through these dark channels, he amassed fragments of information, half-heard rumors, secret coordinates, and coded messages hinting at the syndicate's hidden caches. One pivotal informant was Ral Gorak, a reptilian Zalari whose silver scales, though tarnished by sin, caught the ambient neon of the darkest alleys. Gorak's reputation was as murky as the underworld from which he traded. In a decrepit nightclub named the Rusted Star, a den of vice where music interwove with the sinister clamor of clandestine deals, Kross confronted him. Amid the stench of stale sweat, spilled alcohol, and the murmur of lost souls, a grim confrontation unfolded. Their dialogue was terse and laden with mutual hatred. "Where is Scorn Vraxis?" Kross demanded, pressing a serrated blade with the unwavering coldness of his grief against Gorak's throat. Gorak's eyes, filled with both terror and a perverse sense of respect, darted back and forth as he stuttered, You're the ghost of New Avalon. They call you the Reckoner." Kross's grip tightened. "The dread serpent. Where is it?" he growled. In a final, grim punctuation of his own lost humanity, Kross ended Gorak's treacherous life with a swift stroke, his warning echoing in the silence that followed. Men with nothing left to lose have no need for mercy, and every life taken was a step toward dark absolution. In that moment, every fragment of heartbreak, every memory of New Avalon, fueled his resolve. Vengeance was not the answer, yet it was the only path that bridged his past and his destiny. With every merciless act, the ghost of his past became ever more tangible, propelling him into an abyss where every enemy slain was both catharsis and a curse. The next stage of his journey carried him toward a place that defied the very fabric of order, a den of iniquity adrift in the darkness of space known as Omega Outpost. More than a mere space station, it was a malignant tumor festering on the outskirts of civilized space, built from the remnants of forgotten wars and populated by those who thrived on chaos. At its heart loomed the dreaded Dread Serpent, a gargantuan warship that had become both the Syndicate's crown jewel and its iron-fisted nerve center. The outer hull of the vessel was festooned with trophies of conquest, the skulls and bones of countless fallen warriors pressed into the metal like grim decorations, their silent testimonies of lives snuffed out. Within its bowels, the corridors pulsed with the tortured cries of enslaved beings, a spectral symphony that haunted every step of the uninvited guest. Knowing that direct assault was suicide, Kross devised a scheme born out of years spent mastering the art of subterfuge. In a daring ploy, he allowed a group of scavengers to capture him. Lying still as death itself, he feigned lifelessness as they hauled him aboard the beastly vessel. Under the guise of a broken warrior, he infiltrated the dark labyrinth of Omega Outpost. The silent corridors were illuminated by erratic strobes and the sickly hue of emergency lights. Every breath reeked of blood wine, decay, and the metallic tang of fear. In a dimly lit armory, fate presented him with a grim opportunity. Zorak, a boisterous, blood-drunk enforcer boasting of New Avalon's downfall, gathered a small retinue of mercenaries. With swift precision, Kross incapacitated his foes. One bodyguard fell with a snapped neck in a claustrophobic corridor, while another succumbed in a burst of red as his remains cluttered the floor. In the silence that followed, as if even the echoes mourned the loss of life, Kross carved a permanent vow upon himself. Gritting his teeth, he marked his scarred forehead with the name Anya, a tribute to a love lost in the maw of war, each stroke of the blade a reminder that his fight was not for glory, but for the remembrance of his family. With every challenge surmounted within the impenetrable vessel, the hunt for vengeance took on a more personal form, a journey into the abyss where justice and retribution intermingled as cruel kin. Once inside, the corridors of the dread serpent became a twisted playground of death. Security drones moved with the cold efficiency of programmed predators, and every shadow concealed a hidden menace. The ship's sadistic security chief, Chorus Ven, a hybrid of insectoid ferocity and human cunning, ruled with an iron fist, turning the vessel into an arena for gruesome spectacles where traitors and interlopers were dealt with in the most brutal manner imaginable. Kross surged forward into this lethal ballet. In one corridor, he discovered a squad of cyber-augmented killers, a motley assembly of ex-UEC operatives whose loyalties had dissolved under the weight of greed and fear. With a deft mix of guerrilla tactics, he rigged oxygen lines to freeze entire hallways into deathly tombs and triggered plasma explosions with a precision born of years in warfare. Each act of violence was punctuated not by the celebration of a victory, but by the silent counting of debts owed to the fallen. Deep in the engineering bay, amid the hum of failing systems and the hiss of scalding steam, Chorus Ven cornered him with sinister glee. "Vraxis will flay your daughter alive for this transgression," hissed Ven, his voice a slithering promise of torment. Kross's reply was measured and cold, his plasma cutter ignited in a spark of unyielding rage. "Tell him I'm coming." Every word was a vow, an oath to protect what little remained and to honor the memory of all that had been lost. The ensuing battle was a maelstrom of action and inner resolve. With every enemy vanquished, Kross's thoughts returned to the tiny warmth of his daughter's embrace, the laughter of a family that could have been. The corridors, slick with blood and illuminated by the sudden bursts of plasma, witnessed the final confrontation on the command deck, a twisted cathedral of desecration where scorned Vraxis awaited. There, amidst the ruin, the warlord held Lara captive as if she were the embodiment of every broken promise. A tense silence reigned as the two former lives collided. Vraxis, his eyes alight with cruel amusement, sneered, "You should have stayed buried, ghost." In response, Kross detonated a plasma grenade. The ensuing explosion shattered not only the heavy silence but also the bonds that tethered him to his past. The chaotic ballet that followed was a furious exchange of blade against armor, a desperate struggle where each parry and thrust carved the pain of loss into the very metal of vengeance. In the final act, a plasma grenade's lethal flash signaled the defeat of the man who had forsaken all compassion. With a final, wrenching cry, both a farewell to his old self and a promise to the memory of his loved ones, Kross plunged his serrated blade deep into Vraxis's throat. In that moment, as the monstrous eyes dimmed, the hatred inside him became as tangible as the blood spilled on the floor. Yet, even as the monstrous warship began its self-destructive spiral, a piece of his daughter remained, a fragile life suspended in tragedy. As Lara cowered on the cold metal floor, her eyes reflected both terror and a glimmer of newfound resolve, igniting in her a determination that would one day reshape her destiny. In the aftermath of the battle, with the wreckage of the dread serpent illuminating the void of space, Kross and Lara clung to fragile hope. They fled aboard a stolen fighter, aptly christened Raven's Echo, a vessel as scarred as its pilot but fueled by the embers of redemption. Hurtling through a debris field strewn with the remnants of shattered empires, the duo entered uncharted territories where survival was defined by cunning rather than brute force. Their destination was Elysian's Rest, a neutral port and haven for the worn, the desperate, and the broken souls left behind by relentless conflict. Amid the sprawling labyrinth of rusted corridors and neon flickers, the atmosphere was equal parts grim and strangely poetic. It was here that Daniel began to confront the many layers of his fractured self. Inside a cramped, smoke-filled safe house, an encounter with Silverin, a weather-beaten broker with a sharp tongue and an even sharper mind, offered both a new alliance and a mirror to his former self. Over a scarred table littered with data chips and remnants of past glories, Sil slid one such chip toward him. The holographic display etched the insignia of UEC Blackwatch, a bitter reminder that even his own allies had turned their backs in times of need. "Why do you keep fighting, Kross?" Sil challenged during one of their private, tense conversations. "Aren't you tired of chasing ghosts?" Kross's eyes, heavy with sorrow yet burning with determination, met hers. "I fight so that the past does not repeat itself. Every enemy I kill, every soul I reclaim from darkness, that's for Anya, for Lara, and for every lost life that dared to dream of peace." In the tight quarters of Elysian's Rest, father and daughter also found moments of rare intimacy. Between grueling training sessions aboard their newly acquired UEC Spectre-class raider, a ship that Kross renamed Anya's Vengeance, Lara began to absorb her father's hard-won lessons. Their silent dialogues during combat training were tender yet resolute, a unique blend of shared grief and fierce determination. "Lara," her voice wavering yet determined, "Dad, do you think, eventually we can leave all this behind?" Kross, wiping away remnants of sweat and blood, responded in quiet, choked tones, "There will always be battles to fight until we earn our peace. Our war is never really over, but every blow is a step toward a future where we don't need to hide from our memories." With each passing day, the bond between them deepened. Together, they planned and plotted retribution against every remnant of the Bloodfang Syndicate. Their training was not just physical, it was an education in resilience, in the art of channeling pain into purpose. The winds of fate soon carried them to Vexus Prime, a volatile, molten world perpetually aglow under a burning sky. Vexus Prime was a cauldron of chaos, where the remnants of the Syndicate gathered to solidify their dominion over the shattered remains of human civilization. Here, in the very heart of ruthless iniquity, the duo set their final course for vengeance. Intelligence had pinpointed Dravik's soul, an exiled lieutenant from Vraxus's inner circle, as the architect of unspeakable cruelties, auctioning captured children as if they were mere tokens of power. With every detail of Dravik's twisted operations fueling their resolve, Kross and Lara prepared for a mission that bordered on suicide. The stronghold of the Syndicate was not simply a fortress, but a living nightmare, a conflagration of relentless cruelty and chaos. Under cover of a scorched ember-filled night, they infiltrated the stronghold. The fortress walls, chiseled from obsidian rock and scorched metal, pulsed with an eerie infernal light. Shadows danced along the corridors like specters as the pair moved silently, their footfalls muffled by the thick heat that radiated from the very ground. Each step was fraught with the peril of detection, and each encounter with patrolling mercenaries served as a grim reminder of the cost of their mission. In a blood-spattered command center, Dravik's soul raged against the injustice that had befell his twisted empire. His voice, both a sneer and a snarl, filled the chamber as he taunted his captors. "You should have died on New Avalon," he spat, his plasma cannon raised defiantly. Lara, with the precision of a warrior tempered by grief, acted in a split second. A single well-placed shot shattered the threat to her father's life, and as Dravik faltered, Kross closed in with the finality of a man reclaiming his lost innocence. "We did," he murmured, plunging his blade into Dravik's chest. His whispered words, carried on the weight of countless souls lost, resonated in the silent aftermath, a promise that every act of cruelty would be avenged. Dravik's lifeless body was a symbol of the crumbling order within the Syndicate. With his death, the tenuous threads holding the monstrous coalition together unraveled rapidly. In the ensuing chaos, the once feared overlords turned on one another, leaving the remnants scattered like broken glass across the burning landscape of Vexus Prime. The disintegration of the Bloodfang Syndicate, while not an end to all conflict, marked a turning point in a long and bitter struggle. In the vacuum of power, new factions vied for dominance, and with it, the possibility of a truce among those tired of endless warfare. On the battered deck of Anya's Vengeance, as the cold light of a blood-red sunrise illuminated a distant, newfound colony, Daniel Kross surveyed a horizon that was both haunting and hopeful. The silence that stretched between father and daughter was rich with unspoken promises. Lara's eyes, once filled with the terror of loss, now glimmered with the resolve of someone who had survived the crucible of war. "What now?" she inquired softly as the first gentle rays of dawn graced the horizon. Kross, staring at the awakening sky, replied with a quiet fervor born of relentless battle and newfound understanding. "Now, we live. We rebuild. We reclaim the future that was taken from us, one day, one breath, one victory at a time." But peace was elusive. The scars of war ran deep, not just across landscapes but within the hearts of every soul who had witnessed its brutal artistry. In secret meetings on isolated outposts, Kross shared his story with refugees and former soldiers alike. These gatherings were tempered by sorrow and hope, a medley of mournful reminiscence and the stirring of newfound dreams. Among the ragged coalition that gradually formed were renegade scientists, former mercenaries seeking atonement, and even defectors from the very forces that had once betrayed him. Each encounter added layers to Kross's character, a mosaic of guilt, redemption, and the stubborn resilience of the human spirit. In one somber session beneath a star-flecked sky, a former enemy turned ally, Captain Alina Mora, revealed her own journey from perpetrator to penitent. "Your story is not merely one of vengeance," she said quietly. "It's a testament that even the darkest hearts can learn to beat with hope. We all have our demons, but together, perhaps we can quiet them enough to let life breathe again." Kross listened, each word a balm on wounds that had never truly healed. Back aboard Anya's Vengeance, as repairs and modifications transformed the battered ship into a beacon for those lost in the void, Lara also embraced her emerging identity. No longer was she solely defined by the pain of her abduction or the terror of battle. Under her father's stern tutelage, she blossomed into a compassionate yet formidable leader. Even as she mastered the art of combat, a symphony of instincts and strategy, her tender moments of vulnerability revealed a deep-seated desire for reconciliation with the past. One evening, in a quiet corridor lit by the soft glow of an aging holoscreen, she confided, "Sometimes I wonder if, after all this fighting, there will be room to forgive, room to forget." Kross paused, the weight of years settling on his shoulders. "We must never forget, Lara," he said, voice both gentle and firm. "Memory is the cost of survival, but forgiveness is the currency of peace." In the aftermath of dismantling the Syndicate's core, the shifting tectonics of power across the stars rippled outward. Former alliances fell apart, bitter betrayals came to light, and the United Earth Confederation's remnants began to maneuver for control in a landscape now devoid of their once mighty authority. Amid this maelstrom, Kross and his newfound band of survivors began the arduous process of rebuilding, not just structures and societies, but also the trust that had long been eroded by war. Kross found himself grappling with demons beyond the physical scars. Nights became long soliloquies of regret and doubt. Visions of New Avalon, once idyllic, now an emblem of what once was, haunted him. In whispered recollections during solitary nights on the observation deck of Anya's Vengeance, he would trace the outlines of memories with trembling fingers. Photographs of Anya's radiant smile, the gentle touch of her hand as she tended the garden, and Lara's innocent laughter were interwoven with the screams of battle and the grim finality of loss. It was during one such restless night that a mysterious message arrived on the ship's encrypted comm system, a plea for help emanating from a distant, besieged world. The message was brief and unadorned, yet it stirred something within Kross and his ragtag crew. The transmission spoke of a people under siege, of tyrants who enforced a cruel order, and of a secret rebellion simmering in the shadows. With a mix of trepidation and purpose, Kross recognized this as a final, defining chance to transform vengeance into something transcendent, redemption. Over the following weeks, the crew of Anya's Vengeance, now a consortium of disparate souls united by shared pain and hope, set out on a new mission. This subplot of their journey became a catalyst for change. Former mercenaries reformed into protectors, rebellious scientists devised plans to counteract oppression, and even disillusioned ex-officials revealed long-hidden truths about the machinations of power. During a clandestine assembly in a derelict spaceport on a forgotten moon, a grizzled veteran named Merrick recounted stories of lost battles and faded glories. "Our wounds run deep," he rasped, "but maybe they can guide us to a future where no one is forced to hide in the shadows of their own despair." His words struck a chord in Kross's hardened heart, affirming that the long road ahead might hold possibilities for healing that no weapon could ever achieve. In a series of strategic strikes, Kross and his allies liberated several captive colonies, each rescue mission not only weakening the remnants of tyranny but also sowing seeds of trust among oppressed peoples. These missions, fraught with danger, moral ambiguity, and unexpected alliances, led Kross to question the nature of justice. Was his quest truly about vengeance, or could it evolve into a pursuit of hope and renewal? One cold, starlit evening, as the crew celebrated a hard-won victory in a hidden enclave built from recycled remnants of warships, Lara approached her father. Her eyes, reflecting both the burden of their journey and the strength of newfound purpose, met his weary gaze. "Dad, our fight isn't just about erasing the past, it's about building a tomorrow where all this pain doesn't have to be our only legacy." He exhaled slowly, his voice heavy with both sorrow and a glimmer of something like hope. "Perhaps you're right, my daughter. Today, we live to honor those we lost, and tomorrow, we forge a future that embraces life instead of being defined by war." In the drifting corridors of an ever-expanding cosmos, Daniel Kross and Lara gradually became more than mere survivors, they became beacons of a new way forward. Though the imprint of vengeance never fully faded, it transformed into a guiding force that championed both remembrance and renewal. In secret gatherings on the fringes of reformed colonies, Kross spoke to others who had been worn down by endless conflict. His voice, roughened by years of battle, carried the weight of personal loss, yet it resonated with the promise of rebirth. "We choose freedom," he wrote in an old, weathered journal as he stared out at distant star systems, "not the freedom born of endless war, but the freedom to live, to imagine, and to forgive. For every shattered horizon, there is a dawn waiting to rise." Lara, now a seasoned leader, continued to hone her skills not solely for combat but for the delicate art of healing the wounds of a fractured galaxy. Her training sessions, an amalgam of martial discipline interwoven with lessons in empathy, became a cornerstone in the formation of a community that accepted not only ex-combatants but also those who had once been considered enemies. As the new coalition grew, it began to embrace voices from all corners of the war-torn universe, the former mercenaries seeking redemption, rogue scientists with revolutionary ideas, and even former enforcers of tyranny longing for a second chance. Together, they established councils and safe havens dedicated to restoring not only physical structures but also the bonds of trust among disparate communities. In an unexpectedly serene moment aboard the rehabilitated Anya's Vengeance, as the ship drifted near an emerald blue world newly dedicated to life and art, Kross and Lara sat in quiet contemplation. The endless sea of stars outside was punctuated by promises of future stories, a reminder that in the vast, dark canvas of the cosmos, no light ever truly fades. Lara said quietly, "Every life we save, every act of kindness we plant, is a rebellion against the cruelty of our past." Kross nodded, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. "We will carry those memories with us, but we will also write new stories. Stories of hope, trust, and the enduring power of the human spirit." Though Daniel Kross's path had once been paved solely with vengeance, the final chapters of his life became a testament to transformation. In the reclaimed corridors of space and the fragile communities emerging from the ashes of war, his legacy was redefined. His journey, filled with harsh battles and tender reconciliations, served as a reminder that even amidst deep darkness, the human heart can kindle sparks of renewal. And as the stars bore witness to this evolution, the once malign specter of vengeance was reborn as a guardian of hope, a living symbol that from the deepest wounds, a fragile, luminous peace can ultimately emerge.